enjoy the talks, and we'll talk a bit more in 35-40 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Mamie Sloan, and I'm Harbro's Dairy Technical Nutritionist. I've been working for Harbro for just over a year now, and before that I worked for another nutrition company in the southwest of England, and my own farm dairy experience comes from working at my uncle's dairy farm during holidays from school until after university.
Hi, evening everybody. I'm Jill Hunter, Harbro's beef and sheep nutritionist. I started with Harbro in the spring of last year after having spent some time working for Quality Meat Scotland and Keenan Alltech beforehand. For those of you who don't know us, Harbro are a family-owned, family-run business based in North East of Scotland, established in 1977. We've got 4 different production sites, but we actually trade in over 20 countries across the UK, Europe, and further afield. We are one of the largest on-farm suppliers of minerals in the UK. Everything that we do at Harbro, we pride ourselves in innovation and quality, and everything that we have, that we do, has that sustainability and customer profitability at the core.
So tonight we're going to be covering what we're trying to achieve and what improving efficiency and sustainability actually means. This is a huge topic, so we will then move on to our approach to sustainable farming and finish with a question and answer session, as Steve said. So just to reiterate that again, if you have any questions throughout, just please type them into the chat box when you think of them.
Excellent. So like any business, farmers have got goals, and it's our job as on-farm advisors to help set them, and most importantly, to make sure that we've got strategies to be able to reach our goals. So on every livestock unit, animals are always a key focus. If they're not healthy, if they're not performing, then we're not profitable. We know there are ever-increasing environmental pressures which are in our interest to address. And due to tightening profit margins, production efficiencies are continually being driven to ensure that we remain profitable. And of course, there are 2 big pressures just now that we're all very much aware of, as though they need named: Brexit and COVID. One thing that I just really wanted to draw everybody's attention to was this interesting comment that was in the Kpis enterprise costings last year. It said that economic sustainability and environmental sustainability goes in hand. Now, this really is a recognition that it's mutually beneficial for us as producers to ensure our enterprises are as efficient and sustainable as profitable, both for the environment and for our own profit, for reaching our own goals. Of course, like anything, there are some factors which we can control and there's others that we can't. So we've got to take control of the ones that we can influence and forget about the ones that we cannot.
So at Harbro, we have a few key focus areas where we are the experts in driving on-farm efficiency. And these focus areas have a real impact on sustainability. And we're going to focus today on each of these points and examples of how each works on farm.
So we're going to start with research and development. Everything that we do is underpinned by science and innovation. And over the years, Harbro's invested hugely to find the best products and solutions, which have always been at the leading edge. To that end, we have 2 full-time members of staff completely dedicated to R&D. So on the left-hand side there, we've got Caitlin Palmer, who's our research and development coordinator. And then on the right, we've got Fallon McLean, who is completely dedicated to Maximon, which we'll talk more about as we go through. So just, I guess, a question for you all: how many trials do you think Harbro as a feed company are doing just now? You might think that we're doing a couple, maybe 10 at the most. At the moment, we've got 36 trials ongoing, which is a huge number, 36. This really, really sets us apart and shows you how dedicated and invested we are within the industry. Some of the trials that we're doing, they're standalone, and other ones are in collaboration with our other industry partners. So you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, we've got the University of Glasgow. So we have a tie-up with Glasgow Vet School, and they have input into all of the trials that we do. And we also, on top of that, we have a resident vet, Reg Jones, and he is currently doing his European Masters to become a sheep expert, and that's funded by Harbro. So what's new and exciting in the world of Harbro R&D? On the ruminant side, we have this really, we've been trialing a really exciting new additive, which The initial results showed that we got an improvement in average daily gain by 320 grams a head a day in the last 20 days of the finishing period. So really exciting, and looking forward to doing a bit more work on that. In the pig and poultry sector, we also have similar things going on and exciting trials. And those of you who are involved in pig and poultry will know there's a lot of legislation changes coming down the road, and we're determined to be at the forefront of that alongside our producers.
So moving on to utilising homegrown feed now. So traditionally we would, grain would be sold and farmers would buy back their feed. Is it moved on to the next slide, Jill? Sorry. With an emphasis now on reducing food miles, we need to help farmers to utilise their own homegrown feeds and feeds which can be grown sustainably in the UK. It also allows farmers to be less vulnerable to changing markets, as we are seeing in the last few months and right now with what's happened with raw materials and prices, etc. So we use analysis and precision rationing to ensure we're only buying in and supplementing what is actually required. And we also have on-farm mobile processing and ration mixing services to promote utilisation of this feed. So we've recently invested in a new rationing programme that is the first of its kind in the UK. It is a dynamic model, and it focuses on how the ration is fed to the cow using the whole digestive system from the rumen to the large intestine. And we can use this to ration cows more accurately while balancing homegrown feed and purchased feeds to optimise production and cost.
So one Harbro innovation which has completely revolutionised the way we ration ruminants is Maximon treated grain. Maximon is our alkaline grain treatment, which has a number of benefits when it's been fed. I'm just going to show you a short video. It's about 3 minutes where I explain the benefits of feeding Maximon cereal to your animals, and you might like to turn your volume up a little bit to hear this.
I'm Jill Hunter, Harbro's beef and sheep nutritionist, and I'm going to explain the key features and benefits of feeding Maximon treated cereals to your animals. For the last 10 years, Maximon has revolutionised the way we ration ruminants. There are 4 key features which benefit the farmers which feed Maximon to their animals. We've got improved grain protein, stabilised rumen pH, improved diet digestibility, and improved rumen performance. By increasing the protein of the grain, we reduce the requirement for buying in additional protein. In addition, the Maximon process adds ammonia as a source of non-protein nitrogen. This enhances microbial protein production. The constant challenge when feeding ruminants is how we keep pH optimum, as many feeds are acidic, like silage. Optimum pH for rumen function is just above 6. Maximon stabilises rumen pH, meaning that we maintain the optimal range for the rumen to work most efficiently. Maximon works by breaking down fibrous structures, meaning we improve the availability of energy to the rumen microbes. This allows microbes to make best use of the energy and additional dietary protein we've provided them. Additionally, because we've already created the ideal rumen conditions, microbes are more active, and therefore we see improved overall diet digestibility. With the optimal level and form of grain protein, stable rumen pH and improved fibre breakdown, we have the ideal conditions for enhanced rumen function and subsequent performance. So what key benefits and results would we expect to see when we're feeding Maximon to our animals? First of all, because we've had improved rumen function, we'd expect to see an improvement in feed conversion ratio. This means that we're getting better performance from the similar amount of feed. Equally, we'd expect to see improved digestibility of the diet, which means we're getting more out of the same. And we'd expect to see that stable rumen pH. That means that we have more time at the optimal pH of just above 6. Because we've spent more time at a pH of 6, then we would expect to see fewer health issues. Because our rumen is more stable for a longer period of time, this means we've got less risk of acidosis. Acidosis is simply a build-up of acid in the rumen. Because there's a build-up of acid in the rumen, we end up killing off some of the microbes. Less microbes mean we're getting less out of the feed, and we end up with poorer animal performance. In addition to that, some of the acid can end up in the bloodstream and can result in issues like laminitis. Because we've reduced the risk of acidosis, this means that our animals are more content. If the animals are more content, we tend to see Animals which are more settled, they lie down, they chew the cud, and we'd also see an improvement in dung consistency. As well as an improvement in overall animal health, we'd also expect to see an increase in our profitability. We expect fewer poor performing animals, so it's not about making the best better, it's about taking that bottom third and pulling them up, pulling your average up. We also expect to see an increase in daily live weight gain, which overall improves our efficiency on farm. If you want to utilise your homegrown cereals, improve rumen performance and health, and increase the overall profitability of your enterprise, Maximon can help you do this.
So Jill, you just heard there, she covered many of the benefits that we get when using Maximon with beef cattle, and these are exactly the same for dairy, with improved feed conversion and improving health of the digestive system. So we use Maximon treated grain widely throughout many dairy farms in both Scotland and the rest of the UK, as well as all over Europe. In dairy nutrition, for high-yielding cows, there's always a balance between managing milk production and the health of the digestive system. So Maximon allows increased cereals to be fed in the ration more safely compared to untreated or acid-treated grains. This slide shows one of the testimonials we've had, and the Baileys have been feeding Maximon for a number of years now, and they've been able to increase the amount of cereal they feed in the TMR safely, with an average milk production of around 34 litres and high solids on twice-a-day milking. I also recently carried out a master's project on feeding Maximon to dairy cows, and I found that overall Maximon significantly increased the production of butterfat and protein when introduced to the ration. And when it was fed at high levels of above around 5 kilos per head per day, we also saw a significant increase in milk production compared to the previous diet. So moving on to meeting consumer demands. Consumer demands are ever changing, and in times when social media has a dramatic and quick influence, producers have to be sharp and able to make changes swiftly. Demand for dairy has been impacted due to COVID, which caused the closing of cafes, restaurants, fast food outlets, and coffee shops. But this did come with a switch to more home cooking. So HDB found during a study in the summer that there has been a reduction in those claiming to cut back their dairy intake from 17 to 11%. And those that are consuming more has increased from 5 to 12%. So that's really positive. And out with COVID, an ongoing consumer concern is climate change in the environment. And there's no escaping the buzz around soya use in animal production. We have the option of sustainable soya sources, but we also need to be looking at adapting to livestock production without its use. It's our job as nutritionists to look at the animal's requirements, and cows do not have a requirement for soya. They have requirements for amino acids, which can be supplied by other protein sources, so bypass protein sources such as protected rapeseed meal. And this winter, we've replaced soy in our dairy compounds with the use of other feeds such as rapeseed meal, protected rapeseed meal, and distiller starch grains.
When it comes to beef, one consumer demand that we're all very much aware of is the change to carcass specifications. So we really had to think about that quite carefully and adapt the way that we feed finishing animals, and even further earlier in the animal's life, to make sure that we're hitting that smaller carcass weight at the right fat cover at the right time. But with any challenge, as you know, comes an opportunity. And where we've really helped our producers to meet up the shortfall in the steer carcass weights, we've tried to make up the shortfall by improving or maximising the output of heifers for that job. So making the difference between heifers and steers less. In any case, consumer demands aren't going away, and if we want a fair price and sustainable markets in the future, and we have to adapt, we have to produce what consumers want to eat, and really what they'll pay a premium for.
So at Harbro, we work at all levels of the supply chain in order to ensure our advice on farm is relevant to guarantee our customers are meeting market demands. And we are committed to know the latest industry demands and requirements so that we can offer our customers the most up-to-date, relevant advice.
To make sure that we're meeting the consumer demands, it's essential that each part of the supply chain plays their part and works together. We're in regular contacts with different stakeholders all the time. And one really great example of this, which you may have seen in the Scottish Farmer in the spring of the year, in 2019, we were involved in the creation of a new integrated beef supply scheme alongside one of our existing customers and other supply chain partners. Now, Harbro's part in that project is to make nutritional plans, supply materials, to monitor performance, and then to produce KPI reports so that fact-based decisions can be made at all points of the supply chain. What this has meant on farm is that cattle are taking 1 week less to finish, and the majority of those animals, the vast majority, are hitting that target market specification, which has been set by the retailer. It's also taking uncertainty out of the supply chain for everybody. The farmer doesn't have to worry about taking the price that week at the market, and the retailer doesn't have to worry about the steaks fitting into a packet. Everybody knows what they're getting all the time, and that absolutely has to be a more sustainable way to work. The Aldi Scotland buying team have shared some thoughts here about how Harbro have contributed positively into that project and how we play a part in their supply chain, and really the importance to Aldi of having industry partners like ourselves. Okay.
And in the dairy team, we have also been working in partnerships with processors and retailers on research and development projects. So here we have a clip of Phil Scott from Miller talking about their vision for sustainability.
I'm Phil Scott from the team at Muller Milk and Ingredients. As part of our commitment to sustainability, we're developing carbon reduction roadmaps, which will help us identify points in the supply chain where we can reduce emissions. Looking at the very beginning of the supply chain, we're working with Harbro to understand the impact feed can play, and a series of trials are currently underway investigating how, by introducing rumitec to the diet, emissions can be significantly cut without compromising production. Although these are not yet complete, we're currently producing some very encouraging results.
Okay, moving on now to monitoring KPIs. Now, our beef and sheep director is always telling us, tell me what you know and not what you think. And actually, if you just take that as a bit of a lesson, a bit of a mantra, tell me what you know, not what you think. The examples that we've shown you, I'm sure you'll agree, they only work well where we've had good KPIs in place, and actually we're constantly looking at them, we're constantly measuring results, we're constantly monitoring what's going on, and we're actually managing things. So we're always improving wherever we can. And it's also essential that data which is collected is of good quality, because sometimes bad data is worse than no data at all. And we have different tools across Harbro for different species to allow us to tailor what we measure on each farm to make sure that we're relevant for that enterprise. They have to be farm specific, and for the KPIs that you're interested in, we like to compare them against industry targets for your relative enterprise type. For example, if you're milking 12,000 litre cows, there's no point in comparing yourself to extensive grazing systems, because it's really of no relevance and you're not going to be making the sort of progress that you might be capable of. Now, one of the longest standing sets of tools we have within Harbro actually sits within the pig team. So various tools that they've designed over the years which calculate and forecast performance and allow farmers to make key decisions based on facts. So tell me what you know. And after years of doing this, the pig team have been able to create what's called the HIP score. So HIP stands for the Harbro Index of Pig Performance. So this is an index, so a collation of different numbers to make one single figure to be able to compare farm to farm. Now, it's based on factors which the producer can actually influence. So it's based on things like growth rate, feed conversion, mortality rate. all the sorts of things that you can actually have an influence on. It doesn't take into account things like finished pig price or raw material costs, because the farmer doesn't have control of those. So why are we benchmarking them on that? So you would imagine then, so the farms with the highest HIP score, the best growth rate, the best feed conversion, and the lowest mortality rate are the most profitable. They're the most efficient and they're the most profitable. If you think back to the QMS quote from the beginning. And the HIP score is really, it's fast becoming the target within the industry. And this is a real goal to get our ruminant performance recording up to this standard as well. So where do we start? In the beef and sheep team, we have a very simple tool which allows us to show customers how different changes to their diets will affect animal performance and ultimately their bottom line. That's what we're all there for. We're all trying to make money. We're trying to run a business. The example that we have up here shows how swapping out existing standard minerals for minerals which include Rumitech, what sort of impact is that going to have on the animals and on our bottom line? So on the left-hand side there, you can see what the current diet is. So maximum barley, straw, intensive beef minerals. Nice, simple, straightforward, ad-lib finishing ration. And then on the right-hand side, we've opted to swap out the intensive beef minerals for a mineral which includes Rumitech. In this example, it's costing 4 pence per animal per day to boost the mineral pack and include Rumitech. Pretty cheap, I would say. But can we justify it? How we justify it, if we look down here, we reckon that by introducing Rumitech, we're going to see at least a 1% increase in killing out percentage because of the way the animal will lay down more lean and less fat. So in this example, adding Rumitech minerals to these animals is worth an extra £21 per head over the finishing period.
So on the dairy side, Milk Monitor is our own tool for performance analysis, which has been developed over a number of years. So we try to complete this with our customers whom we work with regularly, monthly or bi-monthly, for those which find looking at these measures a useful tool. So we do look at total feed cost per litre and herd margin over feed cost, as these are particular measures which tend to draw dairy farmers' attention. And we can also look at peak yield and persistency of the herd through lactation, as well as feed efficiency through our rumen rate calculation. So rumen rate is our measure that we use in Milk Monitor for efficiency. It measures the kilograms of energy-corrected milk produced from kilograms of dry matter intake. So the more kilograms of milk you can produce from a kilogram of dry matter, the more efficient your animals are. And we know that this is a key performance indicator which drives economic efficiencies on farm. This is demonstrated by this data displayed in this graph, taken from various entries on our Milk Monitor program. And it shows that as rumen rate of the cow increases, the margin per cow per day increases. And this may sound obvious, but please remember that each of these entries will also have their own individual and different feed costs on farm, but efficiency is still producing that increase in margin. So with the aim of calving heifers at 2 years old, we have our calf performance monitor, and this is aimed at calves pre-weaning, and we have customers who weigh calves and send us information, or we can also go to the farm and weigh calves for the farmers. So we calculate their individual daily live weight gain and feedback their performance. We aim to get around 2 to 3 weights of calves pre-weaning to measure if they are making target weaning weights, which will stand them in good stead and give them a good start to life to achieve calving at 22 to 24 months. And this is our target for calving heifers because it has been shown that at this age, if they calve down, they improve production and longevity, which has a direct impact on the profitability and sustainability of your business. And finally, for monitoring tools on the dairy side, we have Interherd. It's a program from NMR, which we can import milk recording data into and analyze this information over time. So we can use this with customers to look at many different things on farm, including performance KPIs, and we compare this to 500 other herds in the UK. We can look at digestive health of cows through a fat and protein monitor, and also a feed monitor graph to analyze the energy status of the herd. We can also look at health parameters such as somatic cell count trends and the dry cow period performance of the somatic cell count. And we also look at fertility trends as well, so KPIs such as submission, conception and preg rates. If you're hitting the top 25% in your KPIs, you'll be amongst the most profitable and sustainable farms. And we're looking at carbon efficiency, and we know that these farms have some of the best profitability.
So now we're going to think about sourcing environmentally sustainable raw materials. For the last 30 years, Harbro may have made a really conscious decision never to use palm kernel in any feed. There's two reasons for that, and the number one reason originally was because it's nutritionally poor. Okay, we don't get out of it what we think we're getting out of it. It doesn't feed how it analyzes. We don't want to use it. And second of all, we're ever increasingly aware of its detrimental environmental impact. So by not including palm kernel and other nutritionally poor ingredients, we ensure that our compounded feeds, our blends, everything that we're putting out is high quality, is energy dense, and that means that we get results on farm. It means that we've got a lower cost per kilo gain, we've got a lower cost per litre of milk produced. And I really would urge you to bear that in mind when you're comparing compounded feeds, when you're choosing your U feed for the spring. Please make sure you're comparing like for like, and you're getting the best value for money. Cheapest per tonne isn't going to drive animal performance, and you could actually be getting false economy with it. So you heard earlier that consumer demands are changing, and there is an increasing demand for supply chains across the board to become soya free. So we do source and use sustainable soya, but we also have options for all classes of beef, sheep and dairy, which are soya free. There is a misconception that it's soya, for example, that increases colostrum quality. In actual fact, it's bypassed protein and amino acids that the animal has a requirement for. So we need to feed amino acids and bypass protein. It's not feeds we feed, it's nutrients. And we can find these nutrients in other feeds, other more environmentally sustainable and feeds which are just as cost effective. Okay, so once we've considered the carbon footprint of our individual ingredients and we've decided what we're going to feed, and we then need to consider the carbon footprint of our entire enterprise. That takes into, if you have your mixed farming, you've got to take everything into account. But methane is the main greenhouse gas which is produced from agriculture, and we know that ruminants are the biggest producers of that. We know that, that's a fact. So the question is, how do we fix this in a way which benefits us as producers and the environment? The two go hand in hand. So if we improve production efficiency, this means that we need less animals to produce the same. Okay, so less animals producing the same means that we reduce our maintenance requirements. So we reduce our maintenance requirements, that means we have less animals producing the same, but overall we're producing less methane because less animals actually doing that. So if we want to be sustainable, we first of all have to improve our efficiency, and that in turn will reduce our environmental impact and our carbon footprint. Then we can think about the next steps.
So next steps, once we've done everything in our power to increase efficiency in farm, we can consider additives which modify the rumen microbes and therefore produce less methane. So Jill's just going to play a video here just now on our additive.
Is your farm under pressure to reduce its carbon hoofprint and stay profitable? There's a good reason why. Agriculture is responsible for almost 1/10 of human greenhouse gas emissions, and almost half of that comes from cattle alone. It's a global problem that requires local solutions. Rumitech is a feed additive that is shown to significantly reduce emissions and improve feed efficiency in dairy and beef cattle without affecting productivity. By reducing the amount of methane produced, Rumitech makes fermentation in the cow's rumen more efficient, making more energy available to the cow to make it more productive. Assured by the Carbon Trust, when fed correctly within a predominantly forage-based diet, Rumitech has been shown to reduce dairy and beef enteric methane emissions by around 6% per animal per day, and dairy enteric methane emissions by around 18% per litre of milk. These efficiencies could reduce the cost of running a herd of dairy cows by £24,000 per year. At just 4p per cow per day for dairy, or 2p per cow per day for beef cattle, Rumitech is simple to introduce with minimal costs. And there are also many secondary benefits to feeding Rumitech, such as improved grading and killing out percentages, improved fertility, reduction in feed intake, and reduction in cases of ketosis. Rumitech reduces emissions and increases productivity.
So Rumitech is our unique additive, which is a blend of essential oils. It has 3 unique features compared to other additives which also reduce methane. So first of all, the Carbon Trust has recently heightened its standards, and as far as we know, we're the only additive that has been reapproved for this scheme. Secondly, as we've just heard, it improves performance. And thirdly, Rumitech alters the micropopulation of the rumen, but the rumen doesn't then adapt to this change, and so the effect continues to last while it's being fed. With other additives, the rumen can adapt and this effect can be lost. So Rumitech and Maximon are both recognised by carbon assessment auditors as well, and they will improve your carbon score if you're feeding these to livestock. Finally, it's worth noting, in January 2020, the Committee on Climate Change published a report on land use policies for a net zero UK. And within this, it set out a mandate for feed producers to make use of methane inhibiting feed additives in compound feeds before 2023. So this is coming, guys, and we've heard in the last week that payment and policy for England is going to be linked to carbon, sustainability and efficiency. So other policy coming from the UK and Scottish Government is likely to be similar. And in order to farm without subsidy, standalone businesses need to be efficient anyway in order to remain profitable and viable. So therefore, it's worth getting ahead of the game and taking advantage of the mutually beneficial results for the environment and for animal performance. So as you've heard from Phil Scott earlier, we're currently carrying out some trials on commercial dairy farms throughout Scotland in partnership with processors. So here we have Caitlin, our R&D coordinator, carrying out some methane detection as part of these trials. They're ongoing and we don't have results published as of yet. But on previous trials with Rumitech, we found an improvement in conception rate. There's less NEFAs produced due to the cow not milking off her back as much and breaking down back fat. And there's also an increase in dry matter intake with an increase in milk production. The kilograms of milk produced per kilograms of dry matter increased, so the feed conversion efficiency was also improved. Rumitech, as we heard in the video, alters the micropopulation in the rumen, resulting in reduced methane production of around 18% per litre of milk and 6% per cow per day.
So just to finish up, I wanted to share with you an example where all the things that we've just talked about have really come together and work well for the benefit of the cattle, the farmer and the whole supply chain. So Alan Meston here finishes 3,200 cattle a year just outside Stonehaven at his unit alongside his son Stuart. So the table here shows Alan's latest results, and the one that I would pick out is that they're doing all the cattle, so 3,200 heads, so the good, the bad and the ugly, all of them average 1.54 kilos of live weight gain per head per day. And that's taken into account animals which have spent time at grass as well. I would also mention at this point that Alan's, the 600 cattle that are at grass this year, they achieved 1,100 kilos of live weight gain per hectare across the grazing season. So if you were getting 900 kilos to a ton of live weight gain per hectare, you would be really motoring. So to be able to achieve 1,100 is fantastic. So the diet at Alan's is very simple. He's no specialised feeding equipment. He just feeds with a bucket. Uses a lot of homegrown cereals, so treats with Maximon, and uses a lot of byproducts as well. So that example there is the potatoes mixed alongside the Maximon treated cereal. Alan's phenomenal at keeping figures, keeps meticulous records, would absolutely put us all to shame with the records. And loves to share what's working and also what's not, which is good for all of us to learn. And I would really emphasize how important attention to detail is here. This isn't about getting the big bits right. This is about marginal gains. It's about what's the next 1%. How do you get that a little bit more? You think you're doing everything right, but how do you get that a little bit more? How do you improve things a little bit? And it's the same when it comes to RumiTech. You wouldn't put performance fuel in a car that was falling to bits. So don't put RumiTech into something you've got absolutely no control over. You're more likely to see good results in good systems. It's really easy to do the big things, but if you want to get the most out of the cattle, everything has to come together. And that's when we start looking for these marginal gains, putting in the RumiTech, trying it, measuring it, proving to yourself that it works. So since adding RumiTech, there's two things that Alan has seen. The first thing is he's reduced his carbon footprint. So constantly doing carbon footprinting, and as animals eat slightly less and they're on farm a few days less because they perform a little bit better, the footprint per kilo of beef produced is reduced. So that's great. That's a big tick for sustainability. Also means he can put more animals through in the year because he's got more headspace to a bigger throughput. And also we get the big tick for reducing methane on our carbon audit. The second thing that Alan's seen, which is great for him as a producer and also for the rest of the supply chain, is this increase in kill out percentage. This is because we see an increase in the laydown of lean in comparison to fat when we feed RumiTech. So that has benefits for Alan and right through the supply chain. So it's beneficial to the processor, they know what they're getting, and consumers, whether it's right or wrong, they want to eat leaner meat now. So adding RumiTech to Alan's diet really has cranked up performance. It's that marginal gain, it's that little bit extra, the cherry on the top.
So that's a brief overview of the initiatives we're involved with at Harbro to help build a sustainable and profitable agricultural industry across Scotland and the rest of the UK.
So when you go away today, or you're feeding the cattle in the morning, whatever you're doing, there's a few things that I really want you to think about. Could you tell, if I phoned you tomorrow, could you tell us what your current performance is? Could you really? Do you know what you're trying to produce? Do you know what it is you're targeting? Are you getting the best bang for your buck when you're buying feed and supplements? And that's not about the cheapest per tonne. It's not about haggling the £5 a tonne off. It's about knowing what your cost per kilo gain is, knowing what your cost per litre of milk is, and really maximising that. Are you asking for advice? Could you learn something? Could your cattle and could your supply chain benefit from adding RumiTech? Put it in, try it. And do you share with others when things work and when things don't? It's really important that we do both and we understand what's working and what's not. So really make no mistake, we're going to be increasingly scrutinised as an industry, and it's key. I mean, in fact, we really have a responsibility to all improve together to build a sustainable and profitable future for our industry.
So we would like to take any questions now. So if you haven't done so already, please type your question into the chat box. But we're also happy for anyone to contact us later or tomorrow out with this webinar, and here are our contact details on this slide here.
Thank you very much, ladies. It's very informative. Well done. Quite a few questions come in, so I'm just going to jump straight in and start asking. The first one, which also occurred to me as well, you can maybe both answer it, I don't know, but what do the speakers understand by economic and environmental sustainability?
Do you want to answer?
I can go first. Just, I think, well, hopefully, I saw that question coming quite near the beginning. Hopefully, we kind of answered it throughout. But I think the key is that sustainability, efficiency, and a profitable business all run hand in hand. We talked about KPIs and understanding if for your business you're in the top 25% for other herd against other herds in the UK. You're obviously likely also a profitable business and one of the most profitable businesses in the UK. So I think going back to what Jill said as well, just at the end there, reiterating, do you know your performance? I think all of those key things that Jill mentioned at the end there are, you know, running an environmental efficiency, profitability and sustainability. And we know, obviously, if you're, looking at feed efficiency as well, that's obviously environmentally efficient. So the more kilograms of milk a cow produces, based on how much she's also eating as well, is, the carbon value of that milk is much lower than a cow producing a lot less. Don't know if you want to add anything on there, Jill, as well.
I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, know what you're doing. If you know that coming down the line, we're going to have to survive without subsidies. Our businesses are going to have to be economically sustainable. So if we future-proof our business based on that, if that comes with efficiency. So the more efficient you are, the less you're feeding your animals to produce the same amount of product, whether it's beef or milk, then your business is going to be more sustainable.
Just a question, Jill, perhaps for you. I'm not currently measuring feed efficiency in my lambs. What's the easiest way to do it?
Okay, fantastic. Great question. So you're not the only person that doesn't measure feed efficiency in lambs. Depends on your situation, but one really easy way to do it was if you are bringing in your lambs, thinking about this time of year, probably we've got the last 100 or something left to go, and you're going to put them all into a shed and fill them with nice Harbro lamb feed, of course. You weigh them into the shed, okay, and you know how many buckets of feed you've put in there. You know how much they've eaten. You weigh them out the shed again, or they're killed, and then you know how much they've eaten, and you know how many kilos they put on from that. So your feed conversion ratio is how many kilos of feed has it taken to put on 1 kilo of live weight gain. If you want us to help you with that measurement, get in touch and we can do that.
Sorry, I turned my picture off rather than my sound back on. What that type of situation, what's a good number?
So we would know that on Harbro lamb feeder, we'd be expecting a feed conversion ratio of 4:1. So it would take 4 kilos of feed to put on 1 kilo of live weight gain. So 4 kilos to put on 1 kilo of live weight gain. We would know that feed that was less energy dense, that might have things like palm kernel in it, would be more likely to do a feed conversion of 5:1. So that would cost you an extra kilo of feed to put on a kilo of live weight gain. So make sure you're getting the best feed that you can. Also, it means that they're going to be on farm less days as well, and you can get the shed cleared out and you can go on to the next job. Oh, Steve, you're on mute.
Maybe just leave it on, sorry. Just sticking on sheep, I guess, there's a couple of questions. One is maybe a general one. You've talked about beef and dairy. What are the feeding developments in the sheep sector? And I guess a similar one, can Maximon and Rumitech be used in sheep? Yeah,
all fantastic questions. Absolutely. A rumen is a rumen. So wherever we've got feeds that benefit dairy cows and beef cattle, we can feed it to lambs. Maximon is actually a fantastic feed for finishing lambs. That's what I use at home to finish all these lambs. Absolutely, Maximon and a Rumitech mineral, perfect, no bother at all. We also have, thinking about pedigree sheep, we have a range, the Clover pedigree range in Harbro, which is our pedigree sheep range. We include Maximon treated cereals in there for our product called Castle Tap and Lamb, which is a flagship product, sells huge volume of shearlings and tup lambs turned out on Maximon treated cereals within that compounded feed. And Rumitech included as standard across our lamb finishing feeds because we believe that's the right thing to do, and it improves our feed efficiency.
Thank you, Jill. Maybe one for you here on a similar vein, mainly on efficiency. What is driving milk produced per kilo of dry matter, and how do you increase this?
Okay, so there's probably a lot of things, and you could have a standalone hour webinar on this topic probably, but well, yeah, 3 pillars, and what you always look at what's affecting performance for the actual cow would be nutrition management and genetics. And we can have the nutrition right and a well-balanced rumen, but if the genetics aren't there or the management isn't there, then that nutrition isn't going to perform as well as it could on a herd where the management is top class and the genetic potential of those cows is also there as well. So those 3 things in balance, you get the most potential out of your cows. But certainly on a nutrition level, it would be talking about rumen balance, and then also obviously targeting that ration to your cow's specific requirements.
Thank you, Mimi. Not sure if I may have to answer this, but we'll see if either of you fancy giving it a go. Will feed grade urea be included in a DEFRA urea ban?
It's definitely one for you, Steve.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that they're going to be targeting fertilizer use. I doubt that they will target in feed urea use. Urea is the most economic form of nitrogen we can feed to animals, and it's utilized in a similar way to protein. So it would be technically it would be a very strange thing for anyone to try and ban. It gets excluded in some parts of the world for marketing reasons, but I've never known anyone not want to use it for technical reasons. So I doubt the scientists will tell us to stop doing that. Couple in here on Rumatech, maybe the first one, maybe for you, Mamie. Looking at the reduction of methane production with Rumatech, where does that carbon that would have been in the methane actually end up?
Well, it stays within the rumen, and then the animal is able to use that within, when it's breaking down food. Amino acids are being formed by, microbial protein, which then goes into the small intestine, etc. So that carbon is utilized within the cow, and that's why we can see performance improvements. Don't know if you can answer that a bit better, Steve, but that's my understanding of it.
Well, it's the methane's retained in the rumen, which is why the animals are then more efficient rather than being belched out. So yeah. There's another one in here on does the carbon footprint of manufacturing Rumatech far outweigh the carbon savings on farm? Are there figures available to support this? You want me to have a go at that?
I think that's one for you as well, yeah.
I guess, we've, part of the Carbon Trust assessment included a carbon footprint of Rumatech. So that's included in all the calculations. And because you're only feeding a 0.5 gram per day or to beef cattle or 1 gram to dairy cows, it's included in such a very, very small amount that its carbon footprint is tiny compared with the savings. Perhaps one on for you, Jill, on Rumatech. Would you recommend Rumatech for suckler cows?
Yes, another really good question. When we think about suckler cows, I guess we need to think about actually what we're trying to achieve. And in my mind, a suckler cow, there's only 2 stages of production. She's either in calf, so she's dry and she's in calf, or she's lactating and she either needs to be coming to the bull or be growing that calf inside her. So she's either a dry cow or a cow with calf at foot. And when she's dry, really what we're trying to do is almost restrict energy. So if you think about what Rumatech's doing, is it's making more energy available to the animal to do what it needs to do. So in that case, we probably don't need Rumatech for the production side of things. But if we think about wanting to reduce methane, then yes, we can use Rumatech. And Rumatech actually, you see great results in high forage-based diets, which suckler cows, dry suckler cows, would tend to be on very high levels of forage. Once she calves, then energy demand goes up, so Rumitech can be used in that case. Equally, her energy demand is nowhere near as high as what a dairy cow's energy demand is. So at the moment, we don't use it an awful lot, but there's nothing to say that you can't. And by all means, if it's going to get your big tick in your carbon audit, it's there.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one last one for you, Jill. In the past, SIUC have promoted soya for particularly for lactating sheep.
Yeah.
Are you now saying something different? Yeah.
So what we have to think about with whether it's cows or ewes coming to lambing or calving, we have a demand for nutrients. Okay, so we, as nutritionists, we don't ration feeds, we ration nutrients. So we know that the ewe has a certain demand for grams of protein, grams of bypass protein, rumen degradable protein, and energy at that stage. So we can pull that from any source that we feel is relevant, that's digestible, and that the ewe is going to be able to make most use out of. So it doesn't have to be coming from soya. It can come from things like distillers' grains, or even protected rapeseed meal, which is pretty cost effective this season as well. So it's not, soya's not wrong. You get the bypass protein that you need, and it does improve colostrum quality. But if you're looking for a cost effective, more environmentally sensible solution, then it can come from other sources.
Sorry, done it again. One just popped in now, which is probably also for you, Jill. How does Maximon compare to Propcorn barley and Beef Champion in a store cattle diet?
Yeah, so see that question there's from John. Evening, John. Propcorn grain. So what if we think about what we're doing with Maximon, okay, so we've got our rumen here that we want it to be at pH of 6, okay, and then we're going to put silage in, which is pH of 4, and then we're going to put in some Propcorn barley, which is really acidic again, because we've put acid on it to store it through the winter, which is great if it's really wet. But then we've got this rumen that's full of really acidic stuff, okay, and then we're going to ask this little calf, we've also probably weaned it at the same time, and probably vaccinated it, stuffed it in a shed that's never been in before, and then expected to get on with it. So what we're trying to do with Maximon is increase the pH of the rumen. So we want our rumen to be at 6. So we're putting in silage at 4. If we put in Maximon treated cereal that's maybe 9.5 pH, then all of a sudden we have a rumen that's much more neutral. The calf's got less stress on the rumen, okay? So if we think then about, so that's the pH of the rumen, okay, so we've got to get that bit right. You're asking about including Champion 35, I presume is what your question is. The Champion 35 is a Harbro concentrate, protein concentrate based on distillers and rapeseed meal, which also is also mineralized and includes Rumitech in it. So what that brings you on farm is a bit of digestible fiber, bit of bypass protein, which is great for growing animals, and you've also got your Rumitech minerals all in one package. So instead of having 3 or 4 different ingredients on farm, it's all together. So it's just about balancing your diet, getting the nutritionist to look at it, and deciding what's right for your farm and your situation. Equally, Maximon, if you're in somewhere where you're very unlikely to get grain below 20% moisture and you've not really got the facility to dry it, you'd be better to Propcorn it and actually have something you can feed throughout the winter. Maximum grain treatment has to be below 20% moisture. So if you don't have the facility to do that, you'd be better to Propcorn it and find something that's better suited in that case. Okay, thank you, Jill. I've got time maybe for one more question on, I guess, a similar sort of vein, Mamie. There's a question there about the, I guess the long-term
availability of rape and whether there are other sources of bypass proteins available. And you might actually want to comment on bypass amino acids as well. I think the other one I could maybe just quickly answer about whether rape is available in the UK. I think, yes, rape volumes are reducing, but we get a lot of our rapeseed meal from either Europe and potentially post-Brexit Canada. And one of the main reason that it's more sustainable is that it's grown in parts of the world where they didn't formerly have rainforests. So that's what's driving the sustainability, less so than how far it's travelled. But do you want to maybe touch on the bypass protein side, please, Mamie?
Yeah, so I think especially in dairy nutrition, we are looking at like rumen protected methionine and rumen protected lysine as concentrated sources to add into the diet, and this would be formulating like low crude protein diets in the future and matching the amino acid requirement of the cow within the diet. We've often found that methionine is the limiting amino acid in dairy cow production, and this is why moving to rapeseed meal isn't a bad thing, because rapeseed meal actually has a better methionine content than soya does. With a well-balanced ration, you can often meet the lysine requirement for production. So yeah, they're definitely methods, and they're doing that a lot in the US, where they're looking at kind of really low crude protein diets, but methionine and lysine supplementation is really important. And they do that on the pig and poultry side already, and so I guess the dairy side is just moving in the same direction, but with obviously that material being rumen protected.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe just to add to that is that properly balancing protein nutrition of ruminants is going to become key, because that not only from an efficiency point of view, but the whole question about urea earlier and nitrogen losses and the impact that has on the environment. I know that they're being quite heavily challenged with that in places like the Netherlands already. So we as nutritionists will be targeted with making sure that the protein is properly balanced all the way through the life of animals. Thank you very much, ladies. That was excellent. And thank you everyone for all your questions. If we were all in a room together, I'd be asking everybody to join with me and thank you in the normal manner, but we can't do that, unfortunately. But I'm from the amount of questions that have come through and everyone stayed online, I'm taking it that you've all enjoyed your evening, and that you've got a lot out of it, and there's some nice comments coming in as well. So thank you everyone for joining us, wherever you are. If you're traveling, safe journey home. Doubt you are, so safe journey to the kitchen and enjoy your cup of tea. And I hope you've all got something out of this evening. I think interesting and changing times for lots of reasons at the moment, and all these things are going to become more and more pertinent for farming. We need to understand what we're doing, be able to measure our efficiencies, and what impact that's going to have on the environment. I'm sure they're going to be key topics, not just tonight, but for years to come. So thank you. And as was said at the start, if anybody's got any questions at all on this, then please don't hesitate to drop us a line, and we'll endeavour to help and answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.